All right. Hello, everybody. Sorry about the late start. I was having a momentary webcam issue. But hello, everyone. My name is Adda Birnir. I'm the founder and CEO of Skillcrush, and I'm super excited to be here with such a big audience to talk about AI and ChatGPT and all that good stuff. So there's lots of questions. I got some slides. You see that you guys are all introducing yourselves. I love it. Okay. I think that we should dive right in because there's a lot to talk about. I'm just going to update this a little bit. Okay. And here we go. Okay. So welcome to today's webinar, which is the ChatGPT revolution, how AI can turbocharge your career change. So you're here for a reason, and that's you want a more fulfilling and you want a more fulfilling, higher paying, and flexible job in tech. Give a little hand raise if this sounds good to you. This is what sort of brought you to Skillcrush. And maybe you're sitting here going, what the heck is happening? Everyone's losing their minds about this AI stuff. I am really trying to figure it out. I thought this was good. It's ChatGPT, dude. That's what's happening. So if you are watching all of this kind of with, from the side being like, what all is going on, then you're in the right place because that's what we're going to be talking about today. Okay. So throughout this webinar, I want to hear from you. You're obviously doing a great job already in the chat. I don't have to explain to you how that works. And it looks like you're already got a running start in the Ask a Question module, but I'm going to leave time at the end for questions. And I will also do my best to try to keep up with the chat and answer questions as we go. But definitely, if you have a question that you really want to make sure I get to, drop it in the Ask the Questions module, and I will do my best to hit them all at the end. Okay. I would love for you to hit me up with an emoji and just give me a sense of who I'm talking to. Where are you in your career change? Are you considering a change? Are you considering enrolling at Skillcrush, or are you already a Skillcrush student? Latoya is networking, which I love. Employed post Skillcrush. That's amazing. Sarah, you'll have to share all the details. Former student, just finished front and track. Nice, Jody. Good work. An alumni. There's lots of alumni in the house. That is super fun. I was gonna talk about some alumni later. Oh my gosh. Renee says that Skillcrush helped her get her first 2 jobs in tech. That's awesome. Love it. Current student. Amazing, amazing. Former student. Employed post Skillcrush as a product manager who needs ChatGPT. Yes, totally. Okay, awesome. Very cool. Okay, now tell me sort of where are you at with all this AI ChatGPT craziness? Are you all in on ChatGPT and AI? Are you trying all the tools? Are you asking it all the questions? Are you scared about ChatGPT? Let me know. Where are you at? Where's your head at? How are you feeling about this stuff? Megan says she's a moderate user. Mohammed says, haven't tried it at all. Alexander says, playing with some. Sarah says, I use ChatGPT almost every day. That's cool. Curious, tried it out, but scared of how rapidly it's developing. Just starting full in API and all. Nice. Okay. Arcelia is asking, what is ChatGPT? Okay, we'll definitely answer that question. Holly says she's unsure about how she feels, but I think that's fair. Some people are saying obsessed. Oh my gosh, Ethne already wrote a book with ChatGPT. Wow. Joni says she likes it for mundane tasks. Marty says she has a small business and uses ChatGPT all the time. Meg says she's cautious. Julie says she's using it for so many things, baby stepping it. Cool. Okay, great. So it seems like we have a wide variety, which is awesome because then we can really talk about it all. Laura says she's used it for applying to jobs. Nice. Cool. I'm going to be talking about that later. Lee says that she's been using it for months for freelance projects. Cool. Okay, well, great. I mean, the good news here is that I have some information to share, but it also sounds like there's a wealth of knowledge in this community. So I definitely would love for all who have been using it a lot, especially using it to make money or at your jobs, to share all the hot tips. I'm here to learn too. I mean, fundamentally, and I spoke about this in my emails, that I'm going to talk a little bit of background and stuff like that. But I mean, I do really believe that whenever there's a new disruptive technology, it is a real leveling of the playing field. I mean, other than people who have been working in AI, which isn't the majority of techies, the rest of us are like, oh shit, excuse my language. What is this thing? How does it work? How can I use it? And we're all learning it in real time. And and I think that can be a lot of fun. And also I think that that's a real opportunity for people who are new to the field to really, you're starting at the same place that I am, right? And you might even have more time to work on this right now than I do. So, yes. Okay, cool. So for those of you who are not super familiar with us or who are not already students with Skillcrush, what we are is an online education company with a singular goal, and that is to help career changers land new jobs in tech. And the way that we say this is that our job is to get you a job, even in the era of AI. And importantly, at Skillcrush, we have a mission and a deeply held value, which is that at Skillcrush, tech is for everyone, and that includes you. And I will say in particular, we have always been a community that has been really supportive of people who have been sort of traditionally underrepresented in tech. So women, people of color, and especially, and this cuts across all groups, career changers who are making a career change mid to later in life. So in today's webinar, what I'm going to cover is I'm going to talk about what exactly AI is, and importantly, what it's not. And I worked really hard on my explanations to try to put it into the least technical terms that I could, but definitely happy to answer questions. I want to talk about how to approach everyone losing their minds about AI and have some perspective on that. I'm going to talk about why learning about AI, using it, and learning the technology behind it is so important to your future career. Also, I'm going to give you really practical tips on how you can leverage AI in general, but ChatGPT in particular. So all of my examples are going to be ChatGPT related, although, there's obviously a huge and sort of growing exponentially, I don't know what you say, market industry of AI tools. So there's a lot of stuff out there. And if you guys are using anything other than ChatGPT, I would love for you to share that. And I'm going to talk about how you can sort of specifically leverage ChatGPT at every step of your career change process. But obviously that is just the tiniest little sliver in terms of the application of this technology. I'm going to talk a little bit about where to be thoughtful in your ChatGPT consumption, I hesitate to say caution, because I think having consumed a lot of content about AI, I find this sort of scolding nature of a lot of what I hear somewhat irritating. And I don't want to, continue that, because I think you are all smart adults who can manage yourselves. But anyways, talk a little bit about sort of, the potential pitfalls and the things to look out for. And then I have a special announcement, but you're going to have to wait until the end to hear it. Okay. So let's start. What is artificial intelligence? And I put the emphasis on artificial here. So this is a quote from John McCarthy, and he's, I was trying to find a good description of him, and it was he is a founder of the discipline of artificial intelligence. And I was like, okay, but he's a computer scientist. And he wrote in this paper, he said, "It is the science and engineering of making intelligent machines, especially intelligent computer programs. It is related to the similar task of using computers to understand human intelligence, but AI does not have to confine itself to methods that are biologically observable." But I think what's important when you read something like this is that this whole quote that he has is really based on this premise of, or he uses this word intelligence, and obviously it's in the title, artificial intelligence. And he keeps saying human intelligence, intelligence, intelligence. But the question is, what do we mean when we're talking about intelligence? What does that mean? So I love this quote from Joseph Weizenbaum. So he's a creator of Eliza, and Eliza was a very, very early, effectively, chatbot in the history of AI. And he has this great quote, and he says, "What I had not realized is that extremely short exposures to relatively simple computer program could induce powerful delusional thinking in quite normal people." And I think, what I love about this quote and what he's really speaking to is the fact that it is so easy for us, especially if basically the machine is speaking to us in, in intelligent sounding words, to really lose sight of what is actually happening in that interaction. Right. And to start to be like, oh, I'm talking to a human being, or I'm talking to an intelligent being. And that's, I would argue, not the case. So what is AI today in practical human terms? So this is a really, really wonderful author, Kate Crawford. If you are not familiar with her, I definitely recommend looking her up, listening to her interviews. I find her to be really, really thoughtful and just thoughtful, non-hysterical in any direction, right? She's not like, this is the best or this is the worst. And she also does a really good job of breaking down what AI is and how it is really built. And what she says here is, these are socio-technical systems. People build them, right? They don't build themselves. And we just need to look at how they work. And we really need to be empowered with that knowledge and feel, not sort of get swept up in the hype here. So I wanted to talk about what that means. And this is where I'm going to try to hopefully explain this, in a way that is straightforward, and I'm happy to do follow-up questions. So what's happening right now, like the reason why this is happening now, it has a little bit specifically to do with ChatGPT, which I will speak about, but there's also sort of a convergence of things that has happened. So first of all, AI language learning models have gotten more sophisticated. And what a language learning model is it basically is an algorithm that, in simple terms, it's an algorithm that literally uses probability to predict what word should come next in a sentence. And it's playing like the world's most complicated word association game. So given very little data, it's very bad at this, right? Like if you gave it I don't know what a little bit of data it would be, but actually there was a story about sort of early AI at IBM, and they were giving it technical manuals as data because they just didn't have a lot of stuff to give it. This is in the 70s or something like that. And so it was spitting out these terrible technical sentences that didn't make any sense. But so they have a sophisticated algorithm, but it really relies on the amount of data that it can get. And the more data that it can consume and make sense of, the better and better and better it gets at this word association game and predicting. And it starts to really sound like a human being. So a sophisticated language learning model, a gargantuan amount of data, right? Because basically what has happened in the last, 25, I guess the web was created in 89. So going on 35 years, is that humans have been working their little buns off to put a ton of content onto the internet. And now all of a sudden these computers can start to, they have access to all that data. And then we have developed computing and computing power to the point where it can really process all this data. So those are the sort of sophisticated language learning model, so much data. And then all real serious significant advancements in computing power have then, and then what happens is that there is also a human component to this. And I just say this is obviously, this always would have been available to AI, but it is available now, and it is a significant player. So then you also have people who are really interacting with this AI. So it's literally you and I, every time we use ChatGPT, we are making it better. But also they actually employ people. And this is sort of a whole interesting story that I wasn't that aware of, but they, similar to like how Facebook and Meta has, these sort of content moderation groups, they do the same thing. OpenAI is doing the same thing for, tons and tons of people who are interacting with it and giving it feedback. So the combination of all of this is it's created a situation where it has outputted an AI, as they call it, or, it has made available to the general public a language learning model that is using an enormous amount of computing power, a ton of human feedback, and an unbelievable amount of data to sound like a shockingly good human-like intelligent, or to produce a shockingly good human-like intelligent seeming output. And then, and I think this goes back to the thing that that Joseph Weizenbaum said about the creator of Eliza, this first chatbot. So then what you do is you take all of what I just described, and then you layer on top of it this very socially recognizable, because again, like human beings are real social beings and we're all about sort of relating to one another. And then you layer on top of all this AI, this very socially recognizable chat, this question and answer user experience, and you get the insane explosion that we are all experiencing at this moment. So I guess, I don't know if there's an emoji, but did what I just said make any sense? Yes, and I'm reading about the stuff about, the godfather of AI and all those things. Okay, cool. I'm seeing some yeses, so that's great. Cool. So now we're on, and I just thought this was really funny. I love this. So Gartner's has a hype cycle that they talk about. So what they say is a typical progression of innovation. So this is basically something that happens with new innovations that are really, really disruptive. So what they say is we have from over enthusiasm. So basically there's an innovation trigger, which is ChatGPT. Then there is like a huge amount of over enthusiasm. Then it goes through a period of disillusionment to an eventual understanding of the innovation's relevance and role in the market or domain. So I think, for me, like the truth is we don't know. Are we at the top of this little graph? Are we down here? Are we going into the trough of disillusionment, or are we right here? We don't really know, truthfully, but we're obviously somewhere along this roller coaster. And I think, what we can expect moving forward is that there will be sort of a drop off in interest, and people will be like, oh, it has real limitations. It's not the panacea that we thought it would be, or, yes, there's lots of potential, but it's not quite there yet, et cetera, et cetera. And then what was going to happen is as it's widely adopted and integrated into sort of all aspects of technology, we'll start to, refine what we do with it. And then it'll start to build up again, and we're going to start to integrate AI into like every aspect of technology and potentially the world. And then we're going to get to this plateau of productivity where it's just a part of what we do. So to recap, what AI is a complex language learning model. In other words, a really big computer algorithm that learned to predict using probability what the next word should be. And they're shockingly good at this because of huge data sets, crazy amounts of computing power, and lots of human help. And what AI is not is it's not magic. And it's also not an actual intelligent living being. Okay, so will AI be taking over my job? And by that, I mean my job, your job, everyone's job. So I thought this was a nice quote, which is from, I don't actually know how to say his name, Mazen Karouche. He's a designer and he teaches a class on ChatGPT. And he said, AI is not going to replace our jobs, but someone who knows how to use it well. Of course, I think this is an important moment. Like, I'm a big media critic person, right? I'm someone who has, studied media criticism and thought a lot about, sort of like, how do we read media and understand it? And I think it's really, really, really important in this type of moment of, intense I don't know, I want to call it hysteria, but you know what I'm saying? Like just intense moments. And I just want to remind you that I'm quoting him, but the truth is, like, he doesn't know. I don't know, right? Like, we don't have crystal balls. And anyone who says that they can predict the future, including, these people on the sort of very negative side of things who are saying that, AI is going to kill everybody or whatever. I mean, it's not that it's bad for them to say that per se, but it's just as a reminder, like, nobody knows the future. So we don't know exactly what will happen, but we do know that any large technical change like this, which is, I think everyone is in agreement about that. This is a big technological change. It is disruptive, and it does disrupt jobs. And that disruption is both positive and negative. And whether or not it will, Joe says, unfortunately, even AI would not want to take over my job. Joe, I think you need a new job. Let's work on that for you. And whether or not we are going to determine that the changes altogether, overall positive, overall negative, it's just going to remain to be seen. And I just wanted to sort of put this in context of some other recent things that have been touched by both technology and AI. So, for example, if you think about the web was created in 1989, and in 2021, the Bureau of Labor Statistics counted almost 200,000 total web developers and digital designers working in the U.S., and that is just web developers and digital designers. So think about all the other jobs that have been created because of technology that didn't exist in 1989, and the overall positive impact of these technological changes. And then, so, that's on the positive. And then on the negative, you can think about in 1979, there were 20 million manufacturing jobs in the US. And in 2019, there were 12 million, largely due to actually automation and AI. So I think I just wanted to juxtapose these two examples because I think the point is that it's easy to harp on the negative and to see any job loss as bad. But the reality is always more complicated than that. It's good and bad, and how exactly it's going to shake out and what jobs it's going to affect the most is to be seen. But let me ask you this question, which is, if you could go back in time and give yourself advice about the web or technology in general, so is there a moment in time that you imagine that you could sort of give yourself some guidance on how to approach technology, think about technology, knowing what you know now about the disruption that it has had on our lives in our lifetime, right? Like, I won't make assumptions about how old you all are, but I will speak for myself. Like, I grew up, like, I was born pre-internet, right? So, yes, I would ask you, yes, Jamie says buy Google stock. That's a good one. Very good. Yeah, what would you have said? So I'm seeing Renee says, don't be scared of it. Get your hands dirty. Learn how to code. Do it now. Be patient. See what this new technology will lead. All right. Laurel is, she's advocating for patience and watching. 20 years ago, I should have gone into tech. Yeah, I would go into tech earlier. I would have started decades earlier. Stuck with programming in the 90s when I was a teenager. I would have invested in Apple immediately and would have become a software engineer. I would have said to embrace it much sooner. In 2000, my life would be way different, and invest in tech. Yeah, I had an inkling that you guys would say that. And so I just wanted to put that in your head in terms of, this is that moment, right? Like, we maybe missed the boat in, the 90s or the 2000s. And now, lucky for us, technology likes to do this a lot. So it's, this is a big one, but the truth of the matter is there's little ones happening all the time. I feel like I've lived through a whole bunch of different little ones with tech. And I would just say that, what I have learned in that process is that the thing to do is to embrace it. And I don't mean, embrace it blindly, like, and, be a lemming running off a cliff, but being scared and avoiding it is not a power move in this moment. So what I want for you, I want you to be an informed, critical, and savvy AI consumer, which means I want you to be empowered with the information you need to understand what AI is, what it isn't, and how you can use it to your advantage. So to that end, I'm going to shift my focus to talking about how you can use AI to turbocharge your tech career change. Yes, Justin is saying, I've been thinking how now is the time to get into tech. This is the same opportunity as it was in the late 90s. I think that's, I mean, again, nobody has a crystal ball. We don't know. Tiffany says, just patiently waiting for the Skillcrush prompt engineering course. Well, to be fair, Tiffany, that's a little bit what this is. So I didn't make a slide about this, but fundamentally, everything I'm about to show you is a version of prompt engineering, right? So prompt engineering, if you are all not familiar, is the, sort of the expert skill at knowing how to prompt ChatGPT or other AI so that they do what you want them to do. So in that way, that's what I'm going to tell you to do. Obviously, these are very specific use cases, and I will, sort of share some things that I've learned in the past. So the number one thing that you can do to get your tech, to leverage AI to turbocharge your tech career change is that you can have AI help you get your tech bearings. So the way that this is talked about a lot is the way I see this spoken about in sort of the general conversation about AI is this idea of like treat AI like your tutor. Like have it, be your teacher, etc. And I'm not necessarily saying that it is wrong. I'm just saying or I guess my problem with that way of positioning this is that I think that's anthropomorphizing AI, and I want to shy away from doing that. And I also think that really, really underestimates the value that a tutor and teacher brings to the table. But it is true that ChatGPT can be really helpful in terms of explaining different technical concepts. So what you can do is ask ChatGPT to explain technical topics, and you can instruct it how to do it. So, this is probably the lowest hanging fruit in terms of how to use ChatGPT when it comes to technical stuff. But you basically ask it to explain things to you in a simple way. So explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, or not to disparage 5-year-olds. You can ask it to explain it to you in a non-programmer language way. I do not like the examples that I've heard where people are like, explain it to me like it was like you're explaining it to a grandma or something. I'm like, that's ageist and sexist. So I don't appreciate that. But anyways, so you can also ask it, what I enjoy about it is that like you can start with that, and then you can ask it clarifying questions. You can ask for examples to illustrate the concepts, and overall just ask follow-up questions. Has anyone tried this? I'm curious. And had any luck with it? Oh, yes. So this is a great question. How does one try this? You need to sign up for ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, I can just show it to you all. Looks like this. I believe this is the link to sign up. Yeah, Rita says to keep digging. Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, so you just go in here and, you give an example. So does anyone have a question that I should ask ChatGPT? Oh, it's so funny, Marty. I literally have that as an example. My next question, well, this is, okay, so I have this example of show me a function in JavaScript. You guys are asking it how to do like recipes. That's funny. Yes. You can also ask it what's the best way to prompt. It'll teach you prompt engineering. What I was going to say, so support you in learning to code. So this is a little bit more tactical, but you can certainly ask it a clarifying question. So for example, can you explain to me the difference between a CSS class and ID? This is a very, very common question that we get. I love all the questions you guys are saying, which is yes, which is like around cooking. But anyways, so you can use it as a first line of defense before you seek out help from instructors, for example, friends or whatever, like whoever you normally turn to. But understand, but you do have to understand that its abilities here are limited. So the thing, to your point about prompt engineering, also, like, the problem with AI is it can't anticipate what you're actually asking, right? Like, one of the challenges as human beings is often the questions that we're asking are not really the questions that we're asking. And this is where some, and I don't, my goal in this webinar is not to make a plug for teachers necessarily, but just, I think it is important just as a savvy consumer here, which is that ChatGPT can only work with what you give it. And ultimately what you're giving it, like, we as human beings can understand a lot more. Like, we can understand a lot more context. We can read body language. We can associate the questions you asked before. Okay, this is a good one. Jody Bennett says, write a beat poem in the style of Jack Kerouac. We're going to do this just for fun. This is not technically, I should have like a bonus number. Ask it silly things because that's hilarious. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to just start running that and I will keep talking and then we'll get back to that. But yeah, so just understand that it might not actually end up being able to completely solve your problem because it might not know what you're, you know what I mean? Like, you might actually be asking something that is harder to articulate. But the other thing that it can do with learning to code is that it can provide you with further reading and resources. So that is great. I think actually practicing your coding skills is one of the more exciting ways I think you can use ChatGPT. So ChatGPT can quiz you. So we do a lot of quizzes at Skillcrush, and they can be a great way to sort of cement the knowledge. Yeah, Rita says it's a resource, not your answer. Yeah. And ChatGPT can make you quizzes on any topic, and you can just tell it the topic and it can start to do that. It can make you technical problems to solve. It can generate sample code for you and explain what it's doing. I think this is a really cool thing. You can ask it to comment code. You could also give it code and ask it to comment it and explain what it's doing. I think we're all, like, when we're learning to code, I mean, anyone who interacts with code is in a situation where you have to, read code and understand what it's doing. And it can also review your code and check for errors and also suggest opportunities for improvement. So you can copy paste your code. So let's say you have a problem in your code and you don't know what it is, you can put it into ChatGPT and have it identify the problem if it can identify the problem. I've seen some people sort of say, like, you should be cautious with doing that, because especially when you're learning, because learning how to debug your own code is a really, really powerful learning mechanism. So I think this is just, I don't say that to, it's not that it's bad to do it. It's just that you just want to be conscious when you're doing it and thoughtful and understand the trade-offs. And I also thought it was really cool that you can ask it to suggest opportunities for improvement. I think that is a very good way, because, one of the things with coding that is so wonderful and also confusing and is that it's, there's never one, only one solution for how to do it, to, sort of code something, especially when you're doing programming, like in JavaScript or Python. And so, yeah, so asking it for suggestions on how to improve your code could be a really, really powerful learning opportunity. And again, you have to remember, it's not right 100% of the time. It might not actually, suggest anything that's that good, but it's still, it's still, it's just an extra tool for you to have at your disposal. Okay, so now let's shift to the non-sort of coding specific ways in which it can really, really help your tech career change process. So the first is putting together your portfolio. And I think the most powerful thing that you could have ChatGPT do is suggest projects that you could complete to put in your portfolio. And here, the more details you can give it, the better. And this would be fun. This could be a fun thing to play around with. I don't know if anyone has an idea for like a hot topic. We can, let's take a beat and look at this. Oh, wow. This is okay. In the cool jazz night, fingers snap, the rhythm taps, a bop of thoughts, ideas cascade, where you explode, UI parades. This is funny. In the shadows of 1,000 webs, we navigate a user's journey, a tango to anticipate. All right, this is good. Okay, this is funny. So yeah, it can do funny things like this, which is great. But I think like, what if we say, I would like to build a website using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Python to celebrate, beat poetry. Do you have any suggestions? Let's see what it comes up with. Oh, okay. This is funny. I didn't expect this, that it would give me minimal or like give me design suggestions. Yeah, and I think, this to me is similar to how I often use it for writing copy, which is that it's not like I will sometimes work on it with coming up with headlines and for like a blog post, let's say, or something like that. And I've never, I don't think, used the actual headline that ChatGPT has given me, but it just comes up with interesting ideas. And that can be, like often we're not feeling right. Like if you have a project that you want to build that you thought of yourself, you should absolutely do that. But I know that sometimes you're sort of staring at the blank page being like, where do I go from here? Okay. So the other thing I just want to teach you for doing something like this is, I'm going to have it stop generating, is that you can actually ask ChatGPT to help you think through how you go about doing this, right? So how like, it's sort of that decomposition problem of like, what do I do first? So this is great. Now help walk me through how to execute on this project step by step. Yeah, so Kaylee's asking a good question, which is how does plagiarism work with this? And I think that's a great question. And I think that is also a question that's like an open question. And I would really encourage you, right? Like, I think that there's a lot of discussion about plagiarism, cheating. Am I cheating if I use ChatGPT in this way? And I think this is something that we all have to figure out as individuals and also, talk about together in community like this about sort of where we think, what do we think is too far? What are the lines? I will say that for me, the things I would caution you about are, it's like there's a lot of frustration in the process of learning to code, as an example, that is ultimately very good for you. And you don't want to sort of rely on something to take away that frustration. Sorry, I got distracted reading another question, but if you sort of go to ChatGPT, for example, to solve your problems, quote unquote. I mean, first of all, though, like it's not going to solve all your problems. But second of all, I think that you will feel, you know what I mean? Like, I guess I just want to say that, like, I don't want to, I think this is very much like an evolving thing. And I think we all have to figure this out personally and talk about it. And I think it's complicated and nuanced. And I don't want to act as if I know what the rules are, and I think that you have to really sort of think about what feels right to you, right? Like you can't write code in ChatGPT and then, go to an employer and say, I wrote this, right? Like, but that doesn't mean that you can't ever rely on ChatGPT to help you write code. I think it's just figuring out what that line is. Like, how can you feel like you have ownership of something, even though you got help with ChatGPT? That's a good question, Amanda, about ChatGPT ever cited sources. Why don't we ask it a question? Hey, what sources are you using to, know about the poetry? I know that it can offer you resources. So let's see what it says. The data set I was trained on includes text from books, websites. Oh, okay. Well, this is interesting. Amanda, thank you for that question. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so Jamie's saying just specifically say you want real text and articles. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Okay, another thing is writing your about copy, and this really relates to, in a lot of ways, like people are using it for ChatGPT for technical stuff, but also like a huge area of use for it is all types of marketing copy material, email, communication, which is what I'm going to talk about next. But, in our, like, whenever you put together a portfolio, there's going to be a fair amount of copy, and ChatGPT is great for, I actually think like professional, and I say this, I think in the next slide, which is updating your resume. So ChatGPT is a good writer or a great writer. I don't know. Good. I might downgrade it from great to good, but it's a very competent writer, but it is particularly well suited for professional, sort of more formal writing assignments. So like where ChatGPT really struggles is if you need something to feel very personal, very like more vulnerable, not so cheesy, right? Like it can do like cheesy, but it's kind of, it's hard for it to be authentic, right? Because it's not a real person. So it's not good at authenticity. But honestly, it is really strong for sort of more formal writing assignments. And I think that this can be a real hard part for career changers. I think it's a hard thing for most professionals, honestly, because it's hard. Like this is a very specialized skill, like being good at headline writing, bullet points, all of that is it's a very specialized skill, and it's not one that most people have or should have. But we do all need to sell ourselves when it comes to a professional context. And it's also the thing that I think is really hard about resume writing and also cover letter writing and cold emails is that it's emotional, right? Like it's like it just triggers so many emotions, right? Like I see it with our job searchers all the time. I experience it myself when I have to do this, right? Like it's just crazy. It just really brings up a lot of feelings to write about yourself, to try to talk about your strengths. And often we're not the best at understanding our strengths, right? All that stuff. And this is where I think it can be so helpful because it just, it's not emotional. So it doesn't get caught up in all that. It can just sort of process the data you give it, which is like your resume and bios and whatever you have. And then it can spit out something and it can spit out like 20 of them in no time at all. And then you can sort of look at and be like, okay, this is the one that feels good to me, et cetera. So I think this is particularly the first thing I started having our students use ChatGPT for was writing cover letters and cold emails. This is a really big part of our job searching program, which, anyone who's in the job search can attest to. And I think this is the perfect use for ChatGPT. So what you do is you literally just say to ChatGPT, hey, here's my resume. I'm applying to this job. So you copy paste the resume, put in quotes, copy paste the full job listing in quotes, and then say, could you please write a cover letter introducing me to the hiring manager? And it's going to output something that is going to have some moments of brilliance and some moments that make absolutely no fucking sense. And that's when you just edit it. So you'll have to make sure it's accurate. And then you can also provide it with a template to fill out. So for example, at Skillcrush, we have a sample prospecting email template that we share with our students. And so you can just, input that. And then the last thing that is really useful is practice interview questions. So we have tons of blog posts about practice interview questions, which is probably where ChatGPT got all of its information. So you're welcome. But now that it has that information, it's able to generate lots of interview questions. And this is another place where you can give it a job listing and then ask it to generate potential interview questions and then practice. And then you can even ask it to provide you with tips on what to say. And, interviewing for anyone who's been doing it recently is not easy. So these are all, Matthew is saying, I've tried something but it just regurgitates for my resume for the most part. Yeah. Well, so I think this is, you definitely have to start to you put your resume. So you say to it something like, here's my resume. And then if you put it in quotes, just so that it really understands which parts of the resume, because it's going to look kind of funny when it puts it in. And the same thing for the job listing. So that's the thing, is you don't want it to confuse which is your resume, which is your the job listing. Okay, so yeah, buyer beware. It's not always accurate. It'll tell you the wrong thing just as confidently as it tells you the right thing. So it's hard to tell a difference. It can't and won't write production ready code. And over relying on it may cause you more harm than good. So you just have to be careful about figuring out that barometer for yourself. Yes, sorry. This is how I imagine ChatGPT being like, sorry, not sorry, whatever, I'm not a person. Okay, so yes, Laura says, I would say you still need to put your own voice into the cover letter. I use what ChatGPT generates as a guide. I think that's I use what ChatGPT generates as a guide is probably should be the sort of tagline for this entire webinar. Okay, so just to bring it back to Skillcrush for a second, our job at Skillcrush is to get you a job. And we do that for lots of students like Julie Morris, who just got a job at her first web design and development job at Resi, which is a residential real estate SaaS company. And Maggie, who posted this on her Instagram recently. I love this. This is because Maggie did Skillcrush a long time ago. She writes, Skillcrush changed my life. I took the front end dev course, landed a job as a WordPress dev, and now I'm a VP of operations. Will forever be thankful for Skillcrush. Or Elizabeth, who said, never in my wildest dreams would I think that I would be hired for a tech job, especially in the middle of a global pandemic. I went from being unhappy, unsatisfied, and hopeless for a better career to this new path. You're not going to look back and regret joining Skillcrush. And Emily Brooks just posted this. Today marks 1 full year as a web developer. I was really excited to see this. And then Heidi Frizzell, who made the career change over 50, says, I'm happy to share that I've started a new position, Assistance Integration Manager at the University of Vermont Professional and Continuing Education. And Course Report agrees, naming us the best online bootcamp and best UX design bootcamp in 2022. The 2023 ratings haven't come out yet. And best online coding bootcamp in 2021 and 2020. Marissa is saying, I got a job from Skillcrush before I even finished my course. So if this sounds like you, I'm bored in my current role and I haven't been able to move up. I don't feel like I can learn much more and there's no room for advancement. I'm bored and underpaid. I feel like I deserve a better pay and somewhere where I can excel in my talents and to learn more in tech. Then I just want you to know you're not alone. And things can get so much better. I want to reserve for a lot of questions, but I would love for all my Skillcrushers in the house to share if anyone here is thinking about making a career change, thinking about enrolling in Skillcrush. I'm curious if the current students would share with them what advice you would give them. What should they do? What should they think about? What's been your experience at Skillcrush? And then I will share my special announcement and we will go to questions. Joe says, what's the secret, Marissa? Courtney is saying, please, please, please share. Samantha says, Marissa, you got to hook us up. I love this. Amanda says, don't wait, just begin, have fun. Laura says, best decision I ever made for my career change. Amazing experience. Sarah says, use the Slack for questions as often as you need and get the support that's available. Then use it to celebrate your success. It helps keep the motivation up. That's an awesome tip. I love that. Lee, I learned so much in 2 years. Front end dev and UX, UI. Stay the course. Justin says, T says, the lessons have been awesome and easy to progress through. Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that to you all. As a special thing, we have this thing called the Skillcrush. It's called Camp Skillcrush, which is our play on sort of coding boot camps. And it's a free course that we have where you can actually sample real Skillcrush lessons. And we have actually just added Python to it. So if you want to, test it before you buy it or drive it before you buy it or whatever you say, then you can absolutely do that. And I just put the link into the chat. Okay, so with that, let's go to Ask a Questions module. Let's see, who's got the most upvotes? Vintex is asking, is it possible to leverage the power of AI and ChatGPT to earn a decent income? That is an interesting question. And actually, it's one I'd like to pose to the audience because I know that there's a lot of people who said that they are using it who are using it in their jobs. I think it feels to me like the spirit of this question is really about, specifically leveraging AI to make money. And I will say, I could totally brainstorm ideas off the top of my head, but this is not something I've given a lot of thought to. The way that I have thought about it is more just sort of in the application of this as a tool for different job roles. So, or for, the most obvious thing that I'm going to recommend for you is that you learn Python and you get into AI from a programming standpoint, right? Because this is a huge field that's going to grow exponentially. And so, empowering yourself with those skills is going to be incredibly valuable. And of course, combining it with a deep understanding of the ways to leverage AI in writing code, in doing all manner of different functions is going to be super powerful. But I don't have a hacky suggestion for how to make money with AI. But I'm curious if anyone else has some thoughts or ideas about this. Okay. Luke has a question and says, what does it mean if I become lazy with ChatGPT and it stops me from learning more in depth while I'm still in the beginner's level? I would love to use it all the time. However, I feel guilty because the knowledge is not mine. It seems like I'm cheating and I feel like I'm not learning, just copy paste and a bit of reading and very basic knowledge. Yeah, I think this is a really good question. And I think that this is what I'm, when I say, I think that this question of what are the boundaries? What is ethical? What is cheating? What is lazy? What is going to stop you from learning? These are really important and big questions for us to answer for ourselves personally. So I think, I think about this a little bit so I have 2 children, and the sort of contemporary parenting knowledge is that it's not that you want to give them free and open access to unlimited snacks and desserts, but at the same time, you don't want to sort of make desserts this forbidden fruit where they're obsessed with it. You kind of want to find that healthy balance of saying, dessert is food. Food is other food is food. We're not going to treat one as better than the other. And each person has to sort of, find that right balance for themselves. And that might mean eating too much cake and getting a stomachache, right? How do you know how to regulate how much cake you eat? And I think I kind of, think that there's an element of that here too, right? Of course, AI can be abused or used in ways that I think we can all agree that there is a line. But I think, for the lay person, the risk ultimately is low. And yeah, I think you need to be cautious about not over relying on it. And I think that's really going to be, you just have to listen to how you're feeling. If you're feeling guilty, then maybe take a step back, right? You'll figure it out. So Justin is asking, are there tools we can design, build, and market right now with GPT-4 and access to the API? I believe that there are. I mean, this is welcome. I mean, we can certainly ask ChatGPT for suggestions here, but I think this is, where it's like, this is where human innovation has to come in and be like, yeah, what are we going to do with it? There are for sure. So I feel like I'm giving a very unsatisfactory answer, but I'd love that. Okay. So learning Python will help if anyone wants to be a prompt engineer. Yeah, I mean, I think the way that to think about it is that the more understanding that you have about the algorithms and the way that these things function, the better you're going to get at knowing how to ask it for information. What kind of jobs will AI create in the tech world? That's an interesting question, Courtney. Well, I think that the most obvious answer to that question is that there's a lot of new tools in AI to be built. And so it's going to create all the jobs that it takes to make those things a reality, right? So in the same way that we have spent the last sort of 35 years looking at the web and thinking about how can, the web change the way that we do things and the cloud and all of these things, that is also now going to start. I mean, it's not even started. It started a while ago, right? But it's going to really accelerate with AI. And so there's going to be a ton of opportunity to have jobs in tech that are working on AI tools and things like that. Okay. Laurel asked this question: will use of ChatGPT mean we're surrendering our creativity as humans? And I think this is another really important and valuable sort of like ethical pondering. And I think that the thing to remember is it's not like you're only surrendering it as long as you are continuing to participate in it. So if you do it and you feel like you're surrendering your creativity, then you should not do that. I guess, assuming that you agree with me that surrendering your creativity is not a good idea. But I think, you can always stop doing that. And I also think it's possible that you will find a way to use it that does not surrender your creativity, but instead sort of adds to your creativity. And this question is, are there front-end skills, HTML, CSS, JavaScript needed as a foundation for Python? The answer is no, they are not a requirement. But to do more robust things with Python and to do it on the web, you will need to know those skills. It's been a pleasure talking to you all, and thank you for all of your contributions. And otherwise, I just hope that I do encourage you to experiment with ChatGPT. I do encourage you to be thoughtful about it. I do encourage you to get on Slack and other, any other sort of space and talk about it, talk about your experience about it, your misgivings. Like I said, we're all sort of learning this together in real time, and it's about sharing the skills, the knowledge, and also talking about sort of the ethical concerns and finding those boundaries together and creating those norms. And I hope that if you are not yet a Skillcrush student, that you will come and join us and that you'll take advantage of this offer and learn Python and build amazing, awesome, ethical things. And otherwise, it's just been a pleasure talking to you. You're an incredibly fun group of people to chat with. And I look forward to more discussions. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. So thanks for joining me. Bye, everyone.